Assalamu alaikum. So we've done 3 fixes on 3 abayas, which I'm going to show you. I'm going to get Inaya to model these for you. Now, the problem we had with these abayas were they were way too wide. The sleeves were too long, and often they were sort of wide and short, so I fixed them so that they're more wearable. Now Inaya goes to the masjid and she wears an abaya regularly. One of the things that I often see when I take her down to masjid is I see young girls wearing abayas and they're very much short on them, and now these girls actually spend a lot of time every day. They're going for 5 hours, 2 hours every day to the masjid 5 days a week, so they're wearing these abayas quite a lot, and I like Inaya to look smart in her abaya. And it's sad that parents dress their children but then they neglect where they spend most of the time. They neglect on those factors, so it's easy solvable solutions to these problems. And often young girls are wearing these abayas where they're really short. Now what you can do is you can add some lace to the bottom of the abaya, which will actually give it a nice fall and also will solve the problem. So this one I fixed it so that I've cut out along the waistline and given it shape. She hadn't worn these were sent from Pakistan, but they were way too big. This is on a stretchy fabric, so keep the sleeves long but keep them tight so that they're easy to, because this fabric, one of the beauties of this fabric is that it's got a lot of the stretch. Also, even if it's a slightly tight fit, it will fall nicely on a child, but you just have to be careful when you purchase fabrics like this that you change your needle on your machine to a ball point, because often fabrics of this type, like lycra and nylon type of fabrics, machine will not stitch them. So I did have initially a problem with that. I did change the needle to a ball point needle so that we could smoothly stitch these. Now the other problem that you often have on these fabrics is that because they're stretchy fabric, and when they stretch, when children wear them and they stretch, the seaming tends to tear. So if you're using a domestic small machine, then I would suggest using a zigzag stitch. A small zigzag stitch will give it that stretchy pull and the stretchy, I keep slipping on my words, sorry about that. So what will happen is with the stretch creating of the zigzag stitch will give that fabric a stretch, the seaming a stretch, and it will not tear. So this was my solution to number 1. I've it looks really nice, the gear on it looks really nice, and it's all trimmed off. Now the second one, it was exactly the same, and what I did was to lengthen it. Rather than lengthen it from the bottom, I've lengthened it from the waist. So I basically took the top and the bottom away from each other, inserted a 2.5-3 inch piece, and then seamed that over with a lace. Just a little bit of a cautionary word. Inaya is very nice and slim, so she can actually get into these quite easily. But if you're using, this is a stretchy fabric, so try and use a stretchy lace on it as well, and that will give the pull. This one's not stretchy, but it's wide enough for her to fit into. So again, what I did was I slimmed it down, trimmed it down, and basically just inserted that, reattached it all back on, and you know what, it looks absolutely beautiful. It's given it a bit of definition and it's made them different. Okay, so that's 2 of the solutions. Now the third one, what we had a problem with this one was her mum, whilst ironing this, she burned the sleeve. So the portion where the sleeve was burned, I took a portion of that out, and I also took a portion of the same identical of the other side, and then I've inserted a black bleachy type of fabric. This is also stretchy inside the sleeve, and that's sort of like giving it a bit more of a definition. So you can do this even if it was a contrast, it still would have gone nicely, but you can use black, and that's also finished it off. Now the style this style abaya is really nice. I love this style and I would love to sew this for her. But before cutting anything like this out, I would advise any person who wants to attempt something like this is to get yourself familiar with sewing first, because this is a little bit complicated design. It's not something that you would want to jump into straight away. So first of all, familiarize yourself with the skills. How much, what kind of water are you in? It's like you don't leap into the deep end before you can even swim. So make sure to know your facts. Also, one big problem factor with sewing stuff like this is you need to be able to handle fabrics like this, lycra type of fabrics, so that sewing is not a problem, because often we end up cutting things and then when we realize, we come to the sewing machine and oh my god, my machine won't sew this. And often people send queries like that back and say, oh, my machine won't sew it. So make sure to iron out those difficulties before you go into cutting. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with cutting simple abbayas like this for children. You know what, the simpler it is, the more comfortable they'll be, and the more they'll love it and the more they'll wear it. With something that's a bit more fancy, now even with, I'll tell you, with the 3 comparisons now, we've got this abaya and we've got this one, which is a ready-made fancy one, and then we've got the very simple straightforward A-line. And I can guarantee you that she will wear this the most often. Initially she will go for this fancy one, but when she finds that that's a little bit hard to take on and off, she will opt for this, and then this is the one that she will stick with. So what that actually shows you is it's not often children are tempted by glamoury stuff like this, but they resort, and that's with all of us, we resort back to something which is more comfortable. Now if you see someone like me, you'd see me in my linen fabrics like this, even though I don't like the colour on this, because the fabric is so comfortable, I would resort to wearing this again and again. So it's like with everything, we go for the fancy stuff, but we tend to resort back to the comfy and the more manageable. So just a little bit of advice that if you're making, if you're going to make the abayas, these are so simple to make, and you can add a little bit of the fancy, you can get fancy laces and so on to edge at the bottom, and it literally takes minutes to make these. And it's a shame that having bought these, I had to resort back to cutting it all up and remaking it. So rather than doing that, it would have been worthwhile just to actually make it from scratch myself. Anyway, we live and learn, so I shall try and get Inaya to model these for you. She's actually looking forward to modelling at our new place, because she's not actually done modelling for quite a while. So we shall see you on the outside, inshallah.